Good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Excuse me, coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West, the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is February 21st, 52nd day of the year. Just 313 days remain to the year's over with. Holidays observances. Remember, you all ask me to do this every day. National Sticky Monday, Yukon Heritage Day, International Mother Language Day, National Time Management Month, National Caregivers Day, Oral Care Day, Card Reading Day, National Grain Free Day, Real Bread Week, Whooping Crane Festival, which you will find, of course, in Port Aransas, Texas. It's an event that celebrates a return of the whooping crane to their winter habitat. I got the hiccups. Cancer Prevention Action Week, Love Teaching Week, National Chip Week, Simplot Games, National Entrepreneurship Week, Through with the Chew, referring to chewing tobacco, of course, Alzheimer's Disease Dementia Care Staff Education Week, Future Farmers of America Week, Venice Carnival, Build a Better Trade Show Image Week, National Pancake Week, Make Mine Chocolate, National Green Week, Girl Scout Cookie Weekend, Hockey Week across America. The Girl Scout Cookie Weekend, of course, is today, tomorrow, and Sunday. Hockey Week across America, Bird Health Awareness Week, National Engineers Week, Brotherhood Sisterhood Week, National Nest Box Week, National Condom Week, and I'm not referring to the $50 million worth of condoms that was going to Gaza. Take Your Family to School Week, famous people born on this date, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Jordan Peele, Kelsey Grammer. February 21st is also part of International Vegan Cuisine Month, American Heart Month, National Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, National Snack Food Month, Spray Neuter Awareness Month, and I'm talking about pets and not people, National African American Read-In, National Children's Dental Health Month, Human Relations Month, Feline Fixed by 5 Month, National Macadamia Nut Month, Berry Fresh Month, Exotic Vegetables and Star Fruit Month, National Therapeutic Recreation Month, Marijuana Awareness Month, National Goat Yoga Month, Financial Aid Awareness Month, Adopt a Rescued Rabbit Month, National Mend a Broken Heart Month, National Wedding Month, Canned Food Month, National Black History Month, North American Inclusion Month, Renaud's Awareness Month, or Renaissance of the Heart Month, Spiritual Teachers Month, Pull Your Sofa Off the Wall Month, National Senior Independence Month, National Laugh Friendly Month, National Enrolled Agents Month, National Care About Your Underwear Month, Free Open Source Software Month, International Boost Self-Esteem Month, From Africa to Virginia Month, National Sweet Potato Month, National Avocado and Banana Month, Fabulous Florida Strawberry Month, National Cancer Prevention Month, Cholangiocarcinoma Awareness Month, Spunky Old Broads Month, National Blobbuster Month, Ethnic Equality Month, National Cat Health Month, Humpback Whale Awareness Month, Dog Training Education Month, National Prevent a Litter Month, Declutter for a Cause Month, Creative Romance Month, Fair to Remember Month, National Women Inventors Month, National Embroidery Month, Youth Leadership Month, Haiku Writing Month, Love the Bus Month, Jobs and Golf Month, Potato Lovers Month, Celebration of Chocolate Month, Barley Month, Wise Healthcare Consumer Month, National Self-Check Month, National Condom Month, Pet Dental Health Month, National Parent Leadership Month, Relationship Wellness Month, National Grapefruit Month, Low Vision Awareness Month, National Fasting Month, Return Shopping Carts to the Supermarket Month, Great American Pie Month, Bake mine chocolate, please, National Bake for Family Fun Month, National Cherry Month, National Bird Feeding Month, National Hot Breakfast Month, National Library Lovers Month, and Harley Quinn Month. Now, something I want to make you aware of. We're in the process of finalizing it, but we're going to have a presence on all the social media platforms. You'll be able to listen to my radio show, or buy my books, or just carry on a conversation. It'll be kenhudnall.com. 452 A.D., Severianus, Bishop of Sarcopolis, is martyred in Palestine. 1245, Thomas, the first known bishop of Finland, is granted resignation after confessing to torture and forgery. Little faux pas, don't you know? 1440, the Prussian Confederation is formed. This day in 1613, Mikhail I unanimously elected Tsar by National Assembly. That began the Romanov dynasty of Imperial Russia. 1797, a force of 1,400 French soldiers invaded Britain at Fishguard and supported the Society of United Irishmen. They were defeated by 500 British reservists. 1804, the first self-propelling steam locomotive makes its outing at the Pen y Darren Iron Works in Wales. 1808, without a previous declaration of war, Russian troops crossed the border to Sweden at Bofors in eastern Finland. Began the Finnish War, which Sweden will lose eastern half of its territory, which is now Finland. They lost it to Russia. 1828, initial issue of the Cherokee Phoenix is the first periodical to use the Cherokee syllabary, invented by Sequoyah. 1842, John Greenall is granted the first U.S. patent for the sewing machine. 1848, Karl Marx and Frederick Engels published the Communist Manifesto. 1861, Mariehamn, the capital city of Ireland, is founded. 1862, American Civil War. Battle of Valverde is fought near Fort Craig in New Mexico Territory. 1874, the Oakland Daily Tribune publishes its first edition. 1878, the first telephone directory is issued in New Haven, Connecticut. 1885, the newly completed Washington Monument is dedicated. 1896, an Englishman raised in Australia, Bob Fitzsimmons, fought an Irishman, Peter Mayer, in an American-promoted event that technically took place in Mexico. He did all that to win the 1896 World Heavyweight Championship in boxing. Now, in 1913, Ioannina is incorporated into the Greek state after the Balkan Wars. 1916, World War I in France. The Battle of Verdun begins. 1918, the last Carolina parakeet dies in captivity at the Cincinnati Zoo. 1919, German socialist Karl Eisner is assassinated. His death results in the establishment of the Bavarian Soviet Republic and parliament and government fleeing Munich, Germany. 1921, Constituent Assembly of the Democratic Republic of Georgia adopts the country's first constitution. I'm referring to the country of Georgia, not the state, though they do think they're their own country. 1921, Reza Shah takes control of Tehran during a successful coup. 1925, The New Yorker publishes its first issue. 1929, the first battle of the Warlord Rebellion in southeastern Shandong against the nationalist government of China. A 24,000-strong rebel force led by Zhang Zhongchang is defeated by Zifu by 7,000 NRA troops. 1937, the League of Nations bans foreign national volunteers in the Spanish Civil War. In other words, they didn't want mercenaries. 1945, World War II. During the Battle of Iwo Jima, Japanese kamikaze planes sink an escort carrier, USS Bismarck C, and damage USS Saratoga. 1945, World War II. The Brazilian Expeditionary Force defeat the German forces in the Battle of Monte Castello on the Italian front. 1947, in New York City, Edwin Land demonstrates the first instant camera, which we know as the Polaroid land camera, to a meeting of the Optical Society of America. 1948, NASCAR is incorporated. 1952, the British government under Winston Churchill abolishes identity cards in the UK to set the people free. The problem is, in today's society, if there's no way to prove somebody's a citizen or not, you get literally overrun, as has happened here. 1952, the Bengali language movement protests occur at the University of Dhaka in East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. 1958, the CND symbol, also known as the peace symbol, commissioned by the Direct Action Committee in protest against the Atomic Weapons Research Establishment, is designed and completed by Gerald Holtom. 1971, the Convention on Psychotropic Substances is signed at Vienna. 1972, U.S. President Richard Nixon visits China to normalize Sino-American relations. 1972, the Soviet uncrewed spaceship Lunar 20 lands on the moon. 1973, over the Sinai Desert, Israeli fighter aircraft shoot down Libyan Arab Airlines Flight 114, killed 108 people. 1974, the last Israeli soldiers leave the west bank of the Suez Canal pursuant to a truce with Egypt. 1975, Watergate scandal. Former U.S. Attorney General John N. Mitchell, former White House aides H.R. Haldeman and John Ehrlichman are sentenced to prison. 1994, Aldrich Ames is arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for selling national secrets to the Soviet Union in Arlington County, Virginia. 1995, Steve Fawcett lands in Leader, Saskatchewan, Canada, becoming the first person to make a solo flight across the Pacific Ocean in a balloon, no less. 2013, at least 17 people are killed and 119 injured following several bombings in the Indian city of Hyderabad. 2022, in the prelude to the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin declares the Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic is independent from Ukraine and moves troops into that region. The UN, of course, condemned the action, which had about as much force and effect as most of the other things that the UN does, which means everybody pretty much ignores them. Okay. Well, the state of Maine has defied President Trump. He signed an executive order on February 5th regarding men playing in women's sports. And Maine's attitude is, excuse me, we're going to do it our way. The new head of DHS is becoming very aggressive in arresting more illegal immigrants. The Delta's released no information about the captain and first officer who were flying the plane that crashed in Toronto. Delta says the flight crew was properly certified. Delta is pushing back against online rumors and misleading assertions about the crew aboard Flight 4819. The flight's captain was hired in October 2007. Served as an active duty captain in pilot training and safety capacities. This was initially at Mashaba Airlines, which merged with Pinnacle Airlines in 2012, which wound up creating Endeavor Air. The first officer was hired in January 2024. She's been flying with the airline since completing her training in April. And Delta says her flight experience exceeds minimum federal requirements. A lot of people are not happy because so much DEI is widespread throughout most corporations and until recently in the federal government. Well, in the returning of the hostages by Hamas, they just returned 4 bodies, 2 children, their mother, and another person. Well, the one that they said was the mother was not the mother. They don't have any idea who the 4th body belongs to. Excuse me. Hamas made quite a show of the returning. Paraded them through the streets. Now, frustrated Chicago residents are fed up with everything the city does is centered around illegal immigration. They're now calling for Republican leadership instead of the continual Democratic leaders that they've had. The group Chicago Flips Red and Chicago Red has been active in pushing for the GOP to take over what's been a traditionally blue city. Chicago residents say they're fed up with the city spending taxpayer dollars on illegal immigrants. A lot of folks say the taxpayers are the ones paying and funding this illegal migrant crisis. The Pepsi has dropped its DEI chief. They're rolling back DEI as a result of President Trump's orders. Of course, a lot of folks don't believe it because the progressive individuals and most corporations are doing everything they can to hold on to these programs. University of California at Berkeley professor Gerald Ezell has stated that Democrats should stop relying on traditional racial politics to win elections. The Democrats traditionally have relied on black, Latino, indigenous, and Asian voters. They got surprised by President Trump in the 2024 presidential election. According to what he wrote, the 2024 presidential election left the Democrats' multiracial coalition in tatters. Non-white people voted in higher percentages for Trump in 2024 than they did previously. Well, Hollywood traditionally is so far to the left you wonder how some of them can walk upright. Comedy legend John Lovitz is supporting Doge's efforts to clean up the government's crazy spending. He said he thinks it's a good thing about the Trump administration's efforts to crack down on totally out of control government spending. And we spend money on the craziest things. And when you question it, everybody's aghast that you would dare question their brilliant proposals. He gave an exclusive interview to Fox News, and he defended the Trump administration's efforts to curtail federal spending he described as astronomical. We're borrowing money to support some of these crazy programs, and borrowing the money from the people we're lending the money to. Does that make any sense? Well, now, prior to this, Lovett was a lifelong Democratic Party voter until the party's anti-Israel stance forced him to reconsider. Now, Stephen King, the well-known author, has gone back onto X, which was Twitter, in order to insult Trump and Musk after vowing his leaving to not work. Yeah, let's see. A lot of Democrats have gone to court asking for restraining orders against addressing government problems. And the most recent judge to grant one of these silly orders was a Biden appointee, which gives you an idea of that individual's politics. Now, let's see. A group of Venezuelans have sued the Trump administration over the enforcement of our laws. Biden-appointed judge has just ordered Trump to immediately halt foreign aid freeze. Now, I don't know. The problem is when you get made a judge, you think you are God. And some of the ones we've got here give judges a bad name, but they think they're brilliant. Yeah, and Andy Griffin actor Ron Howard found out he's a cousin of Don Knotts, who was a co-star on that show. A lot of lower court judges have ignored the law by letting plaintiffs file frivolous claims against the Trump White House. And they think it's funny. Now, let's see. There was an earth-shaking explosion at a Maui luxury resort. Injured 7 people in the grill area. It was the Whaler Resort on Apali Beach in Hawaii. At least 3 people in critical condition following the blast at the Whaler Resort, which happened last night. Victims range from 18 to 74, according to the Hawaii News Now. Well, cold has come back to the West Texas. BBC has been forced to apologize over who it featured during a new documentary. It featured Hamas's minister's son in a Gaza documentary. British Parliament members going to meet with the BBC regarding the backlash. They were forced to apologize and issue a clarification after, they say, unintentionally profiling a Hamas member's son in the Gaza documentary. It aired Monday. It was entitled Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone. Followed 4 young people with ages ranging from 10 to 24 living in Gaza during the Israeli-Hamas war. And one of the subjects included 13-year-old Abdullah, who also narrates the film. The BBC's announced that the documentary would not be aired on its iPlayer during an investigation. Film faced backlash after investigative journalist David Collier revealed that Abdullah was in fact the son of Hamas's deputy minister of agriculture. So, the position of most of the conservatives is the BBC News has become a propaganda tool for Hamas. The Wednesday, BBC released a statement saying it would add a new text to the film clarifying Abdullah's backstory and apologizing for not having already done this. Well, Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, has vowed to bring the savages who executed the hostages to justice. Nobody knows where the mother of the two children killed by Hamas is at. Her body was not returned. Three buses exploded in central Israel in what appeared to be a terror attack. Nobody was injured. Several other bombs are discovered on other buses, according to the Israeli news agency. Israeli officials have ordered all bus and train services halted while all vehicles are inspected for bombs following the three bus explosions. They blew up Thursday night at about 8:30 p.m. as they sat at a bus depot in Bat Yam, city located just south of Tel Aviv. Buses were empty at the time and nobody was injured. Israeli UFC fighter has given classes on anti-Semitism at self-defense seminars. Some hostages have been in the possession of Hamas for 500 days now. Well, on that note, we come to the end of our news segment. We've been talking about stories of ghosts and hauntings and headless horsemen. You know, a lot of literature, some of our most beloved stories, center around reanimated dead. And it's not just houses that can be haunted. Highways still bustle with the sight of phantom coaches carrying their long dead passengers. You know, in prior centuries, Great Britain was crisscrossed by a network of roads and lanes busy with horse-drawn vehicles. Now, of course, over time, some of those roads have disappeared. They've been paved over or built on. Others still exist as part of the modern landscape. And though these roads may have vanished, tales tell of phantom coaches that still travel the thoroughfares they once knew so well. Often the conveyances are silent, appearing out of nowhere with a legion of spectral horses, leading them out of the underworld, and there's always a ghostly coachman, headless or otherwise, who's driving the horses. Roadways of the past are fraught with dangers, of course, from accidents to highwaymen. Even a simple journey could be perilous and sometimes fatal. None knew this better than the passengers of a coach that crashed into the River Frome on a summer evening, and it still does it from time to time, always on the stroke of midnight. In Yorkshire, meanwhile, the Earl of Northumberland's coach has traveled the streets of Beverley for nearly 500 years. Inside that coach sits a skeletal passenger, while in Edinburgh, Major Thomas Weir's phantom coach is a hellish affair. Now, Weir was a 17th century evangelist who was executed after he confessed to consorting with the devil. It said that Satan carried Weir to unimaginable debaucheries on an infernal coach, and for centuries following Weir's execution, residents of his former home on West Bow heard the Major's ghostly carriage thundering through the streets, dragging him to the underworld. Even royalty got in on the act in the shape of Henry VIII's ill-fated wife, Anne Boleyn. Every year on the anniversary of her execution, a coach pulled by headless horses, driven by a headless coachman, is said to arrive at the door of Blickling Hall. Sitting in the coach is Anne Boleyn herself, her decapitated head tucked neatly beneath her arm. Novelist Thomas Hardy found inspiration for Tess of the D'Urbervilles in the legends of a phantom carriage carrying the eloping lovers John de Tuberville and Lady Anne Howard over an ancient bridge in Dorset. Though some phantom coaches replay an incident or journey over and over, they aren't always so harmless, folks. And the appearance of the carriage is said to foretell of a catastrophe. Just like Tess, for those who see the carriage leaving Woodbridge Manor, death is never far away. Well, I'm not sure what is wrong with my teleprompter here. No, it's not just the roads that have mysterious vessels and conveyances of all sorts. Sightings of mysterious ghostly vessels have occurred throughout history, and innumerable words, both written and spoken, have been spent discussing what you might refer to as terror of the seas. You know, the term ghost ship has come to describe two types of mysterious vessels. The first is a true ghost ship in every sense of the term, an apparition with overtly supernatural origins. Sightings of these ships are often taken to be portents of doom, heralding misfortune for those unlucky enough to see them. Often talk of a curse, the crew of such ships doomed to sail for eternity due to some misdeed. These ghostly ships also tend to appear on the anniversary of the tragedy that led them to be cursed in the first place. Maybe the most famous ghost ship was legends of Flying Dutchman. And there are very few who haven't heard the name of this fearful wonder. According to legend, the Dutchman, often under full sail, appears in the distance, often during a storm. The crew's made up of ghosts, and the vessel's doomed to never be able to make port due to some terrible crime committed many years before by either the captain or the crew. The earliest version of the Dutchman legend can be traced to the late 18th century. According to that tale, a ship tried and failed to make port off the Cape of Good Hope, and with no pilot to guide them, fell victim to the tempestuous seas. John MacDonald reported in his writings that in bad weather the ship would appear once more. This basic legend soon developed into a more foreboding version, with the ill-fated ship looking as if it would run down those who saw it. By the end of the 18th century, the ghostly ship's now known as the Flying Dutchman. Further mutation of the story introduced the doomed crew element because of committing an unspeakable crime. They were cursed to sail till they were able to atone for their evil. Flying Dutchman continues to grow in popularity, and references are made to her in numerous works of fiction, both music and in the art. Most famous sighting of the Dutchman was made by the future King George V of England himself. It was July 11th, 1881. Then Crown Prince, his brother, and tutor all witnessed a glowing phantom ship while on a voyage. And they weren't alone. The apparition was sighted by other members of the crew before it vanished. And tragedy did follow that appearance. The seaman who reported the vision later fell from a great height to the deck below and didn't survive. In an attempt to bring credence to the tale, attempts have been made to identify the captain of the Dutchman. One contender is Bernard Folk, or Barend Folkeds. This real-life 17th century sea captain hailed from Friesland and served the Dutch East India Company. Folk was able to make the journey from Holland to Java with what seemed to be an impossible speed. Letters delivered corroborate the fact he made the distance in a little over 3 months in 1678. This led to the growth of a legend that he had made a pact with the devil, selling his soul in exchange for this preternatural speed. The other contenders, the substantial Captain van der Decken, the Dutch-born captain whose name is often linked with the Dutchman. After vowing he'd not abandon a voyage in a storm, the captain was doomed to keep sailing for eternity. The Kaluch is a popular figure in Chiloe folklore. Sightings of this ghostly ship have been reported off the coast of Chile since the mid-16th century. And far from being a thing of terror, the Kaluch is often said to be something of a party ship, which, with enticing music and bright lights, it gives a vibes of fun. Things are far from what they seem to be, though. The Kaluch is manned by witches and wizards and the ghosts of those who died at sea. And sightings of this ship occur most frequently at night, sighted from the beaches, beckoning and tempting. Although those on board are said to be free and happy, there are dangers. It's possible to be kidnapped or even killed by a Kaluch sailor. And some were taken aboard only to be returned minus their speech or sanity. And those on board are able to shapeshift, as could the ship itself. Kaluch was known to disguise itself as a different ship, only to reveal its true nature before vanishing. And of course, that was to the astonishment of those who witnessed it. Another well-known ghostly ship is the Lady Lovibond, left Deal Harbor in Kent, February 13th, 1748. Never to return. Traditional tale is the newly wedded captain, unwilling to be party for his bride, took her aboard and set sail for Portugal. And the first mate was driven mad by the strength of the unrequited love he felt for the captain's wife, so he took control of the vessel. Oblivious, the captain and the rest of those on board were celebrating when the mate steered the Lovibond onto the Goodwin Sands, where it sank with no survivors. Now, the Goodwin Sands, of course, are a treacherous sandbank with many ships lost there in the 18th century and even later. According to the legend, the Lady Lovibond appears every 50 years, and although faithfully kept her appointment until 1948, according to records, the anticipated 1998 sighting was noticeably absent. As well as fictional ghost ships, there are some that have real grounding in historical fact. These ships entered legend due to being discovered abandoned, derelict, with no clues as to the fate of those who should have been on board. The Mary Celeste, or Marie Celeste, as she's now widely known, is the most famous of this type of ghost ship. American merchant brig became infamous after she was discovered floating off the Azores on December 4th, 1872. Nobody on board, no signs of a struggle. The vessel was just deserted. Cargo, provisions, and belongings to the crew were all as they should be. The only thing of note was that the lifeboat was missing. The inquiry that followed failed to determine what had happened. The missing crew were never found, and of course speculation ranged from mutiny to insurance fraud to piracy. But none of these theories were ever proven. It's hardly surprising that such mundane theories gave way to the more fantastic, such as paranormal intervention of falling prey to an attack by a giant squid. And unlike most good legends, that of the Mary Celeste quickly grew. Accordingly, it was reported that the table had been left with a meal just served. Food still almost warm was discovered, increasing the mystery and the immediacy of the take. A lot of the later additions and factual inaccuracies can be traced to the story J. Habaduck Jeefson's statement written by Arthur Conan Doyle. According to a similar legend, the Indonesian Orang Medan met with a terrible fate in 1947. Although to this day, it's really not clear what happened or even whether the ship existed in the first place. According to reports, a distress signal was picked up from the vessel, but when help arrived, it was to find everybody on board dead. Details such as the fact their faces were frozen in expressions of terror and that all the evidence vanished as the Orang Medan exploded and sank without trace before it could be taken to shore only add to the mystery, of course. Well, the Princess Augusta encountered disaster in the 18th century. The Augusta was a British vessel sailing to Philadelphia from Rotterdam, beset with difficulties from the outset, a contaminated water supply leading to the death of half the crew, including the captain and over 200 passengers. Yet, after yet more misfortune, the ship was wrecked during a snowstorm on December 27, 1738, outside of Rhode Island. The main feature of this legend is the belief that a female passenger, named or unnamed, refused to leave the ship as it went down. Her sanity gone, she was left to meet her fate. Her screams are heard not only as the ship vanished beneath the waves, but can still be heard on occasion. The true fate of the Augusta is not entirely certain. According to legend, on the anniversary of the wreck, a ghostly light can be seen, known as the Palatine Light. This is the ghost of the Augusta transformed into the Palatine by John Greenleaf Whittier in his poem by that same name. You know, ghost ships, both old and new, continue to fascinate and terrify at the same time, with many books and articles dedicated to the topic each year. Given the unabating fascination humankind has for the unknown and the mysteries of all sorts, of which ghost ships are undoubtedly some of the finest examples, they'll continue to do so for many, many years to come. And who knows, one day we may actually find out what happened. Well, there's been a lot of stories of what are referred to as doppelgangers. Stories about doppelgangers have been told for centuries. But are they supernatural beings? Are they omens of disaster? Or could they simply be a strange biological quirk? You know, the idea of the doppelganger has fascinated folklorists and storytellers for centuries. Quite simply, they're the double of another living person, but are entirely unrelated to him. Some versions of the legend of doppelgangers of paranormal origin. Sometimes they're a harbinger of disaster. In other situations, they're the evil archetype. Regardless of what you believe, the idea of a doppelganger is a fairly chilling and strange one. The very word doppelganger is of German origin and literally translated as double-goer. Its first documented use came in the form of Doppelganger and appeared in Jean Paul's 1796 novel Sibankis to refer to the protagonist's alter ego. It entered use in the English-speaking world the next century when it came to replace the word fetch to describe the ghostly double of a living person. And while the word might only have been adopted relatively recently, the idea of a paranormal double is certainly far from new. We trace back as far as ancient Egypt, where the Ka was a double of a living person, sharing not only the identical appearance, but also the same memories as well. A Ka, spelled K-A, even altered the course of the Trojan War when Helen's double appeared to Paris, causing him to change his battle plans. Similar concepts can also be encountered in Scandinavian mythology, this time performing a living person's actions before they did. In Cornish and Norman folklore, the double is seen as a personification of death itself, heralding the forthcoming demise of the person whose appearance it shares. While doppelgangers are familiar figures in fiction, there have been several well-documented accounts of people happening upon their own doubles in real life as well. Poet John Donne claimed to have seen his wife's doppelganger on the evening that she delivered their stillborn daughter. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe believed that he passed his double on the road during a horseback excursion. And more recently, there have been numerous examples of people using social media to find their facial doubles, which they have termed twin strangers. Although there are no supernatural elements to these discoveries, they certainly count as doppelgangers in a more prosaic sense. In Kansas, Richard Jones spent 17 years behind bars for a crime he maintained he didn't commit. He was only freed when a man named Ricky Amos was arrested. Not only did he and Jones share a forename, they were virtually identical in every other way. But they were not related to each other. Well, many times when people talk about the devil being involved in something, they're always asked for proof. Well, what would you think about the devil's footprints? In 1855, the devil came to Devon in England. Night of February 8th, during an unusually harsh winter, a snowstorm blanketed the countryside. People woke up the next morning in towns like Exmouth and Topsham and Dawlish and Teignmouth. Didn't find this a particularly beautiful sight. And you might ask why. Well, a mysterious trail of footprints that closely resembled hoof prints appeared in the snow. And as the papers at the Times reported it, these were the footprints of some strange and mysterious animal endowed with the power of ubiquity, as the footprints were to be seen in all kinds of unaccountable places, on the tops of houses, narrow walls and gardens and courtyards, enclosed by high walls and palings, as well as in open fields. For a lot of locals, the explanation was obvious. These were the footprints of the devil himself. Well, the Times correspondent remarked that the footprints looked as if they belonged to a biped rather than some four-legged farm animal. Many of the tracks looked as if they'd approached the doorsteps of homes before the mysterious visitor had actually retreated. Consternation was so great that one vicar in the area drew attention to the footprints in his sermon, but suggested it instead of some supernatural event. They're actually created by escaped kangaroos. Even he wasn't convinced by this explanation, but later said it was a useful exercise due to the terror the villagers were experiencing. They were dreading to go out after sunset, under the conviction that this was the devil's work. Well, some papers made merry with the event. One Exeter paper said, "We can't pretend they give an explanation for this mysterious affair. But all we know is that if this devil had taken it into his head to have a steeplechase in Devon, he's manifested very peculiar taste in choosing, such as an inclement season for his sport. Soon, those with a more scientific leaning were keen to explain the mystery away. Famous Professor Richard Owens claimed that several badgers were the culprits. Others thought jumping mice might leave similar marks. One of the most novel explanations was that they were left by a balloon that was trailing its shackles along the ground. Most obvious cause, of course, was a hoofed, a shod animal like a donkey was thought unlikely due to the length of the tracks and terrible weather and the spacing of the prints. Well, the 1855 devil's footprints remain unexplained. Intriguingly, only 5 years earlier, another track of devil's footprints appeared at the village of Rowley Riggs, though of a quite different type. Here the footprints were human-shaped, but appeared to have been burned into the ground by red-hot feet. You never know what you're going to find when you go out in the snow. Well, in looking at death and dying, of course, one thing that everybody focuses their attention on is what's known as the undead. Revenants and zombies and ghosts are traditionally thought to wander after death in cultures around the world. Some legends feature incorporeal ghosts and spirits, others feature reanimated corpses, both, of course, equally terrifying. And the belief in the survival of the human soul after death by logical extension has given rise to a long and enduring belief that the dead in various forms can return to interact with the living. either through their own power in order to complete unfinished business or at the behest of another. The restless undead and how to deal with them is a motif that occurs in the folklore of nearly all religions and cultures. Incorporeal ghosts often return with a message or lesson for the living. Some speak to those who encounter them. Others are mute. And while some ghosts are obvious from the outset, others appear solid until a sign such as a lack of footprints or vanishing into thin air or lack of reflection in a mirror betrays them. And some ghosts are benign, of course. Others are reported to be malevolent in nature. Often a ghost returns to put right a matter left unfinished at the time of their death. With love believed to endure even beyond the grave, there are many tales of ghostly lovers returning to their love left behind, or the ghosts of those who died in a lover's pact. Many famous ghosts, such as various gray, green, or white ladies, are associated with specific locations, as are ghostly nuns. Ill-fated monarchs and phantom armies. A revenant, and that word comes from the French for the returning, tends to describe a corpse that's been reanimated, often purposefully raised from death with the purpose of plaguing the living. In Norse mythology, there's the again walker, or the Doppleganger. The zombie, originated in Haitian folklore, is a reanimated corpse controlled by a bokor or a witch. They have no will of their own. Although popular cultures frequently link zombies with voodoo, the religion doesn't include them within its practices. Zombies can also appear in incorporeal form, the spirits selling for a pretty penny if captured and bottled. The word zombie was first used in England in 1819 by the poet Robert Southey in A History of Brazil. The North Degger are terrible, grave-dwelling creatures of immense strength. They can alter their size at will and are believed to be guarding the treasure buried with them. Vengeful and vicious, they hunt down not only those who did them wrong in life, but also known for violently attacking anybody who crosses their path. Well, ghouls and graveyard-dwelling demons from Arabian folklore also have a penchant for human flesh. In some cases, a ghoul gruesomely takes the form of the most recent person it consumed. In other instances, they manifest as beautiful women who lead their beguiled victims astray to the waste in order to feed on them. So if somebody comes up to you, inviting you to join them for a tryst, I suggest you give it a second thought. Well, there's a lot of rumors and legends about churches. There's something called the Church Grim. Meant to be a protector of the ancient churches, the Grim can nonetheless instill fear even in the innocent. In one particular case, a lamb was buried underneath the foundations of a church. It is believed to become the protector of the church and its environment, symbolizing Jesus Christ, who was the Lamb of God. Well, the Church Grim is a curious sort of spirit, acting as a guardian over a church and its graveyard. Present in English and Scandinavian folklore, the Grim has a specific and crucial role to protect its charge from the unruly and the sacrilegious, or anybody who would seek to cause damage at the church. Witches and thieves and vandals, even the devil himself, all can be kept out by the shadowy Grim. And on that note, we come to the end of today's show and run out of time. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll finish talking about the Church Grim and a number of other legends you might find fascinating. Until then, this is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show, saying have a truly great evening. And if you want a great dessert, go to Just Cheesecake Outlet, 404 Arizona here in El Paso, and you'll be glad that you did. Till tomorrow, y'all have a great evening.